Hey, this is Mike. Welcome back to the Z Motorsports shop and channel. Today we're going to be installing a larger cylinder on a 2011 JK Unlimited. So this is a 7, this is actually 11, but this is more applicable to the 7 through 11. If you have a 12 through 18 JK, you already have a larger piston master cylinder, so more than likely this upgrade would be for naught. So this is kind of a follow-up to my big brake kit I put on about a little over a week ago. So I put the big brake kit on, bled everything, got everything done, and I wanted to drive it for a little bit and get a feel for it before I did the master cylinder upgrade. I had a sneaky suspicion that I was going to end up having to do the upgrade, the master cylinder upgrade, but I didn't want to do it at the same time as the brakes, because like I said, I wanted to get some seat time and get some real world feeling for the brakes with the stock master cylinder before I went ahead and swapped it out for this one. So I have about a little over 400 miles on it now. Stopping is fantastic. If you're not, I mean, if you get on it hard enough, you'll put your nose print on the windshield. So it really stops well, but the pedal has a little more travel than I like. So I went ahead and opted to get the Teraflex master cylinder. It's a part number 4303450. I'll actually put a link to this down in the description on the video, but Mopar also makes one that's available. I don't think one's better than the other one. They're both pretty much the same thing. Now, just to like I mentioned, if you have a 12 through 18 JK, it already has the 1 1/16 inch piston. So this upgrade is really only applicable to the 7 through 11 JKs and JK Unlimited. So anyway, a couple things you're going to need: 13 millimeter deep socket, 12 and 13 millimeter wrenches, some rags to stuff down underneath your master cylinder. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is a pretty routine job, changing out a master cylinder. I like to go ahead and crack the lines just so that I know they're loose. Then I go ahead and pull the bolts off and get everything ready to pull. Then I go ahead and bench bleed the master cylinder, get it prepped, put the caps back in. Then it's a simple matter of going over, pulling one master cylinder, putting the other one in, putting it in place, hooking the lines up, and usually you can go ahead and bleed what little bit of air is in between the piston, basically the ports and the lines. You can go ahead and bleed that right at the master cylinder here with a second person inside putting light pressure on it while you crack the lines. So we're going to go ahead and go through the installation. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. The biggest thing I want to reiterate: make sure you put rags. I'm just using absorbent pads, but rags, towels, something stuffed down underneath that master cylinder. Brake fluid, we all know, .3 is notorious for taking paint off. So go ahead and protect your underhood area with some rags, towels, something to catch that fluid before it actually gets down onto your paint. Okay, I'm going to put the hood up. I'm actually going to lean the hood all the way back against the windshield just to give it a little more open area and hopefully a little bit better view with the camera. All right, this part may or may not be necessary, but before I get started, I like to just go ahead and pull out as much of the fluid out of the reservoir as possible. Again, this really isn't 100% necessary, but I feel it makes a little bit less of a mess down the road. Okay, so once you get that out of the way, go ahead and take a 12 millimeter and crack your, actually pull the lock on the sensor here. This is just your low. So go ahead and pull that off, and then there's a little clip that hooks down to the brake line. Just tuck that back down out of the way. I like to kind of stick that back behind the steering shaft, the booster. That way, when you're pulling the master cylinder in and out, you don't have to keep fighting trying to keep it knocked out of the way while you're putting everything together. So now go ahead and carefully crack your lines loose. Okay, and then go ahead and pull the 13mm nuts. Set these aside, these will be reused. Now go ahead and lightly pull your master cylinder assembly forward. You should hear a leak because you still have manifold vacuum. This is a check valve. You still have vacuum on this side of the piston of the diaphragm of the booster. So wiggle a little bit. You should hear that. It should. Yep, it just bled off. So if you can't pull it out because the vacuum's holding it in, go ahead and pop that check valve out. It's not that big a deal. Usually you can just walk them a little bit and pop that seal loose, break that seal, and you'll lose the vacuum. One thing you want to make sure of is there's an O-ring on on this surface of the master cylinder coming out. So make sure it comes out and doesn't drop down into your booster. So now that that's all ready to go, the line's just cracked, I'm going to go ahead and bench bleed the new one so that it's a simple pull, insert, hook your lines up. That's minimal time that system's open for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have a bigger chance of inducing air into the system the longer it's open. And secondly, and more importantly, is brake fluid is very hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs moisture instantly. So anything in the air, whatever, it's going to start absorbing. And only 1% of moisture induced into brake fluid can lower the boiling point about 15 or 20% if memory serves. So it's not good to have any moisture in that. And I do have new brake fluid in here because I just flushed all the system out the other day when I did the master cylinders. So I want to make sure I protect the integrity of that new brake fluid. So I'm going to leave the lines connected until I'm ready to basically pull and stab the new one in. So let's go over and bench bleed the new master cylinder. Okay, so bench bleeding is nothing new. It's nothing difficult. It's nothing high tech. I just have the master cylinder clamped here in the vise. I filled it with some fresh .3. Now when you fill in these master cylinders, they've got a lot of passages and everything in here. So when you fill it, the back half here is going to fill up, and it takes a second for it to migrate over to the front chamber for the front. So don't start bleeding until the brake fluid kind of even levels out in there. So now there's two ways of bench bleeding. The old way, a lot of us used to come with little bleeder kits with hoses that you'd fish back up and over, and you'd pump them until you saw no more air bubbles. Basically what it was doing was pushing fresh brake fluid out, drawing clean brake fluid back in, and basically displacing that air that was in the chamber down here. So that works. It works great. But what works just as easily is to go ahead and pull these plugs and kind of shield it a little bit. Go ahead and push the plunger until and so it draws fluid from the reservoir, pushes it out these ports. Then plug it. If you have big enough fingers like mine do, like I do, you can just go ahead and plug those over, release it so it doesn't draw any air back in, and then do it again until you get a steady stream of fluid coming out. So that's the method we are going to use today. So go ahead. You can see the front chamber is already a little bit of gravity feed. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a push. I'm going to put my fingers over it a little bit so it drips down into the pan rather than, yeah, that front one's got a good steady stream coming out, nothing out of the rear one yet. Okay, so cap them, pull back. Nothing out of the rear one yet. Cap it, pull back. Good flow there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to cap with it. Do it one more time. Yeah, there we go. Okay, got those capped off. All right, I hope this sounds okay here. I've got my ceiling fans on. It's pushing 100 degrees outside today, so I wanted to try to keep things cooled off, but hopefully it's not interfering with the sound quality. So, okay, I got the bench, the unit bench bled over there. We're ready to basically pull this one out and stick the new one in. So, first things first, we are going to pull the brake lines. Okay, those are out of the way. Master cylinder is out of the way. Make sure that that O-ring is not in there, and it is still on the master cylinder. I'm just going to go ahead and run. Run a towel around that surface there just to make sure it's clean, and grab the new master cylinder. Okay, start it on the studs. Make sure you don't damage the brake fittings. Go ahead and start the nuts. Yeah, just start those in. Don't need to go all the way in yet. Now we are going to work on getting the brake fittings in. So go ahead and pull one at a time out. The front one actually seems to be usually the most troublesome to get started, so I kind of like to start off with that one, trying not to cross thread a little bugger. So I got the two lines just snug down. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten things down on that master cylinder. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and finish running these couple of nuts in to where you just want to make sure this basically just gets lightly seated, and then switch over to the torque wrench. Now, one thing, you got a lot of towels stuffed down underneath. Make certain that the towels aren't pinched up underneath that master cylinder between it and the booster. So I just usually like to run my finger down underneath and make sure everything's clear. Okay, grab the torque wrench, set it to 13 foot-pounds. There's 13 there. Double check. We're good. We're golden. Okay, so the actual installation is complete now. So now we will go ahead and just bleed the air that is trapped between the basically between the pistons in the master cylinder here and the lines here. So for that, I'm going to use my trusty son to get inside and apply a little bit of pressure when I tell him. Push. About halfway. Okay, we're looking pretty good, but I'm gonna do a couple more times. Go ahead, let up. Okay, got everything wiped down. I just want to spray it down and then check for leaks. So I'm just going to spray it off with a little bit of brake wash there. Chase it with a little bit of air. Now I'll have him push it, and I'll just feel for leaks and watch for drips. Make sure the lines are tight. Okay, bud, go ahead and push it down. Okay, looks nice and dry. How's the pedal feel?
Much better.
Much better?
Well, I mean, it's not running, but it feels better.
Okay. Now at this point you got a couple options. I feel pretty confident that I've got all the air out of there, but you can also go ahead and do a normal bleed, which I may just go to the the right rear and right front and pull a vacuum and maybe hit a cycle or two with the ABS, cycle the ABS pump a couple times and make sure I got everything out. But I'm going to go ahead and check it and see what things look like. All right, so that pretty much concludes the master cylinder installation on our 2011 JK. Again, we use the Teraflex big bore master cylinder. Mopar also has one out. They're very similar to the specifications, but best I can tell. The pedal, after road testing it, the pedal is better. It's not the way it was stock. It goes down probably a little better than halfway now, but thinking about it, you know, you've got dual piston calipers on the front now with the Teraflex big brake kit, and so they're smaller pistons, smaller bores, but there's two of them, so you're not going to be 100% more volume, but I'll bet you're every bit of 60% more volume going to those front calipers. The rears obviously didn't change because all I did is relocate my factory calipers out a half an inch further to compensate for the 1 inch larger rotor. But on the front, going from a 60 or a single piston caliper to the smaller dual piston, the pressure is going to increase incrementally because of the surface area. So like I said, even though we didn't go 100% more volume just by going dual piston, I bet you there's every bit of 60% more there, and the master cylinder is only about 15% larger than the OEM. So there's still going to be a little more pedal travel, but it's firm, it's good. The thing stops on a dime. I really wasn't disappointed. Like I said earlier, I really wasn't disappointed with my brakes. Fiend factory, I'm only on 35s. It's kind of funny that 35s now are considered small, but on 35s, up from the factory 32s, I really didn't feel like my brakes were suffering. I mean, I didn't feel like they were bad. Were they as good as factory? No, but I didn't ever feel like I wasn't going to stop. But now having this system on, it was definitely a big improvement. So I highly recommend it. I wanted to get this all done before coming down off of Black Bear in Colorado. We've done it the last, I don't know, half a dozen years or so, and it's not bad, but I just didn't want to have brake problems, and so I wanted to make sure and get these brakes put on and give myself at least a few weeks of driving around and making sure I get used to it and make sure there's no problems before we go all the way over there just to come down off of Black Bear and Imogene and and all these other mountain passes over in Colorado. So again, I highly recommend the master cylinder in conjunction with the big brake kit. I didn't do them at the same time because I wanted kind of more real world feeling, but there's definitely a difference. It's an easy install. It's like I said, if I hadn't been recording, I probably could have done the whole thing in under an hour. So pretty simple, but I appreciate you watching. So if you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. More videos coming, and thanks for watching.